We all live inside this big global system. It's a set of rules and agreements designed to keep the world from, well, falling apart. But what happens when that system starts to crack? Today, we're going to look at a pretty intense hypothetical crisis in March of 2026, a moment when that system gets pushed to its absolute breaking point. So, picture the scene. The year is 2026. A war with Iran has just kicked off, and the shockwaves are immediate. Energy prices are going haywire, shipping lanes are a mess, and as this headline shows, the countries that supply a lot of the world's oil and gas are in serious trouble. And this isn't happening in some far-off, isolated corner of the world. No, the pressure is building and fast. Neighboring countries are being asked to pick a side. What started as maybe a targeted strike is now threatening to become a massive regional war, sucking in all the major global players. It's threatening to spiral completely out of control. But then, right in the middle of all this chaos, this chilling accusation comes out. It's from a former State Department official, Dr. Annelle Sheline. And she's not talking about strategy or tactics. She's describing the approach as a genocidal logic of maximum death and destruction. I mean, how did we get to a point where that's even a plausible thing for an insider to say? To understand that, we've got to look at how this whole system was built in the first place. Okay, to really get what's going on, we have to rewind the clock, way back to the end of World War II, and a promise that was made to the entire world. After seeing the absolute horror of the war, world leaders got together with one single desperate goal: to build something that would stop it from ever happening again. They called it the post-war international order. Basically, a framework built on the idea that we should cooperate, we should talk, and we should all play by a shared set of rules. And this wasn't just some vague promise, right? They actually built things. You get the United Nations for diplomacy, the International Monetary Fund to keep the global economy from collapsing, and military alliances like NATO for collective security. The whole point was to create guardrails for the world. Now this slide is really something. At the end of the war, U.S. federal debt was at 110% of its entire economic output. That's a staggering number. It just shows you the sheer scale of investment countries were willing to make, first to win the war, and then to try and build a much more stable world from the ashes. But here's the thing. This system, even though it was built on these really high ideals, it had some deep structural flaws right from the very beginning. The big idea, at least on paper, was this thing called sovereign equality. It meant that every nation, whether it's a huge superpower or a tiny island, was supposed to be treated as an equal under international law, a level playing field. But the reality, well, it never quite worked out that way. The system was mostly designed by Western powers for Western powers, and a pretty clear hierarchy formed pretty quickly. As this analysis points out, there have always been gradations of sovereignty. Some countries were just more equal than others. Okay, so let's jump back to our 2026 crisis. What we're seeing now is those old historic cracks in the foundation becoming these massive gaping holes, and key players are no longer just bending the rules, they're starting to actively break them. Let's just be crystal clear about some of the most basic rules of the game. You're not supposed to launch a war of aggression, that's a crime, and you are absolutely forbidden from targeting civilians, things like schools, hospitals, homes. These rules are not fuzzy. They are the bedrock of the system. And here is the absolutely crucial point. In this 2026 war, it's not just that the rules are being violated. As Dr. Sheline puts it, they are taking a sledgehammer to the very institutions, like the International Criminal Court, that were built to enforce those rules. It's like taking out the referee. So that brings us back to Dr. Annelle Sheline. For her, this wasn't some abstract debate. She was working inside the State Department, and she believed her own government was shredding the system's core principles. She had a choice to make. She chose to resign, and her reasoning is powerful. She says that by staying, she felt like she was agreeing with a policy she just could not defend. She tried to make a difference from the inside, but when it was clear nothing was going to change, she felt the only thing left to do was to walk away and tell the world why. So, if the institutions are being dismantled, if the rules are being ignored, if the guardrails that were supposed to keep us safe are just gone, what comes next? This slide lays out the stakes perfectly. On one side, you've got a world with rules. It's not perfect, not by a long shot, but it gives you a chance for diplomacy, for global trade, for some protection of human rights. On the other side, a world without rules. A world where might makes right, where you risk major wars, economic chaos that tanks everyone's savings and jobs, and mass atrocities. Think about it. This entire post-war order, this whole system, was built for one primary reason: to prevent the horror of another world war. So if that system is truly broken, if the institutions are just empty buildings and the rules no longer matter, we're left with a final and frankly terrifying question. What's there to stop it from happening all over again?